at the Anchorage Museum, and I don't have a good excuse for the way I am. I have a sense of humor about what I do, and I like to have a good time and talking about the museum. I like to do public programming at the museum because it gets me out from behind Excel spreadsheets and Word documents, and gets me out in the community, and I get to have awesome conversations like this. The title of this program is just a little bit clickbaity. We're going to talk a little bit how to fillet a fish. You probably aren't going to learn how to fillet a fish from this exhibition or from this talk, but this for me was one of the best examples of programming that I could think of, and a series of programming that I did. Kind of building off of the conversations that we had yesterday, I love doing public programming like this because it gets me out in the community. It gets me and my museum doing things with people, with our community that there are people that might not necessarily even come into the building. Programs I've done at the museum and outside the museum, most of the time it's people that have never been in the museum before. We get a lot of, maybe about 50-50, museum fans and visitors, like frequent visitors and members. And then there's people that have never been to the museum before. And it's so important to have that. And I'm trying to do this more where I do what I can to learn about why people haven't been to the museum before, or what keeps them away, and why they're choosing to engage with us outside of the space. So kind of a little bit more about me. I'm a curator of Indigenous arts and initiatives, and I was born and raised in Haines, Alaska, but I bounced around a little bit. I worked as a newspaper photographer and a commercial fisherman, and I worked as an artist, which is an artist I worked in adult education. This is the sort of thing that happens when you live in Southeast Alaska and you just try and make it, and you end up doing a little bit of everything, and it you actually end up being qualified to be at the Anchorage Museum. The job advertisement for this position was an insane. No sane person should have applied for this, but they wanted somebody that was a contemporary artist or familiar with contemporary Alaska Native arts and contemporary arts. They wanted somebody that had experience in programming. They wanted somebody that had experience in adult education, or at least that's what I told them they wanted. And fortunately for me, they said yes, and so here I am. I'm an Alaska Native. I'm Nupiaq from a little village called Ugashik right here. My family's from Kotzebue. My dad was raised in Fairbanks, which is kind of fun. But through because I have a weird sense of humor, through the magic of boarding schools, my family ended up in Haines, Alaska. There's a Haines house there. My dad was getting in too much trouble in Fairbanks, so his family moved to Haines. And my mom's family actually chose the Haines house to send their kids to. And over time, everybody moved there. So I love fish. That was the other part of my introduction. Fish is part of everything I do. I'm responding to a Sterling Harjo interview I just listened to. I have a spiritual connection to fish. Fishing and working with salmon is the closest thing I have to praying. I think when I work with fish, it is connecting to millennia of my past, and I love helping people understand that connection with fish and build those reciprocal relationships around fish. That's the me part of it, but here's the fun Anchorage Museum part. The Anchorage Museum curators have been applying hands-on learning to engage in community members. And I'm going to read it because it's kind of small and it might be hard to read the screen. Curators hosted interactive programs about wild foods available in their community, art-based classes, and Alaska artist-led workshops, all centering on place-based knowledge. these programs, invite new visitors into the museum, and help community members learn and about the land around them. So it's one of those things. We're a large enough institution where we have the blessing and the curse to, if we have a crazy idea, we can most of the time make it happen. So, and this is why I like to do community engagement through public programs. We get to activate our exhibitions and our installations, and activate. I used activate twice. Why did I do that? We get to activate the museum and meet with visitors and connect with institutions, with members of the community, and we create new ways of serving our community. I flipped it over. That almost messed me up. I wanted to make sure I threw it up there. We talked a little bit yesterday about what is our mission and knowing what your mission statement is. So I actually, before I saw that, I pulled out our mission statement in our special museum font. It looks really official. Our mission is to be a museum for people, place, planet, and potential, and service a sustainable and equitable north, creativity and imagination for what's possible. And become a place for ideas and transformation and narratives. It's pretty broad. We can make some things happen. I like this part of it. But part of this process is like thinking about reimagining what the museums can be. This is the fun part for me. Like we can reimagine what a museum can be for the community, which is why public programs. Much longer one. We do have a mandate to engage with on-site and off-site, and embracing the natural world and our urban surroundings and essential sites for the narrative and their place. And the environment which we bear witness to change. I really do take to heart the getting on-site and off-site. We do occasionally have like installations that we help that aren't part of the museum, but I also should say that I kind of wanted, the format, we're a small enough group. I'll talk at you for a little bit, but the way I like to run a lot of my programming is to talk a little bit and then either have a conversation or get people doing hands-on stuff. I didn't bring fish for this program because I didn't know what the Wedgwood Museum was going to be like. So I would have really liked to carve up a fish in front of you all, but here we are. I'll talk about that a little bit. We're here for sharing voices and perspectives. This is the main reason we do programs. Any questions so far? Any thoughts? Okay. I just want to talk about a couple of kind of programs that we do at the museum. We do artist talks, art classes led by artists or museum staff, curator tours, member events, repair reviews programs, a program called Vital and Creative, which is a program that we create art classes geared towards seniors, and Urban Harvest, which is a program that I do, which is about celebrating the things the food and medicines that we can find around our community. These programs are put on by a couple of different departments in our organization. Everything okay out there?
Something large.
It looks like a bag of trash.
Somebody took the easy way out.
Oh, cleaning the gutters or something, maybe?
I guess. Sounds like somebody.
Yeah.
In public programming and talks, always embrace the unexpected. One of the last talks I actually gave, there was a small fire that broke out, and so And for me, it was great because it was about the time when my talk was really bombing. So
Oh. So you're suggesting that we just start a whole.
don't start a fire. Please don't start a fire.
Grab a shovel.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I have a question.
Yeah.
I've seen like on Facebook advertisements for the, I think the art classes that you guys have had.
Yeah.
And when you say it's led by artists, are they paid to do the classes for you guys?
Yes, they are. We have
I mean,
a whole-
I'm just asking on a like practical basis.
No, I mean,
Uh,
if folks get, I really try not to push people to volunteer too much. Like, I think artists should be compensated for their time.
Uh-huh.
In one way or another. I know a lot of smaller institutions might not be able to do that, but I think it's really important to show a level of gratitude.
Mhm.
Like maybe that might be a gift basket. It might be some kind of honorarium of sorts, but it's important to do that.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
How long do you guys charge for your classes and workshops, or are they free? for people?
I was going to mention that a little later on, but I'll talk about it now.
Wait.
No.
Yeah.
I'll totally forget about it. We charge for some, and we charge for a lot of them are free. I'm just gonna mention it right now because like it was an experience I had like earlier in the fall time. I had charged for one of my salmon skin beading classes actually. Like I think I charge a nominal fee for it, like $25 with some ample scholarships and ample room for people to,
Mhm.
if they weren't able to pay that, they could
Yes.
still sign up. I thought it was important to like, because of what we were paying the artists at that time, to be able to, I wanted people to show up. Like I didn't want people to sign up and bail or not attend. So, and I was working with my programming team and we came upon that scheme. It's gonna be,
And you guys provided the tan fish skin.
we did, we print
So, yeah.
materials.
Mhm.
But a little later on, I didn't have a grant to be able to pay the artists. So I tried running the same program by charging a little bit larger fee. And I didn't get people to show up as much.
Yeah.
So it's a fine line. It's, I think it's important to like run free programs. Yeah, free programs are better, but
Well, I bring it up because we ran into something at the Indigenous Museum where I work. We do a lot of community programming, and we do, like recently, we've been doing a lot of cultural arts opportunities that are grant funded, and we're a nonprofit museum. We ain't got money, but we get money. And we typically do not charge for our workshops because we write the grants to pay for the materials, and we write the grants to pay for artist time. We have I think it's, depending on the grant, $35 to $45 an hour that we pay our artists. But I recently had a discussion with an artist who does not choose to work with us. And she was very upset that we were not charging people to attend the classes because she thought that it was devaluing the artist's time for our audience by not paying them. And it was something we hadn't really thought about because our thought is, if we can get money from BIA to do a headdress workshop that will pay for everything, why would we not share that with people? If we can get money from the city of Kodiak to do a beaded cup workshop that will pay for everything, why would we not provide that for people? So we haven't really fully decided kind of what we're going to do with that, but we don't want to upset artists either. And we did not think that we were doing that. You know, we thought we were providing a service of like, oh, there's this amazing thing, and like, to make a headdress is very expensive. There's a lot of materials. And so we thought, oh, we're doing this great thing and we're making culture accessible and we're giving people an opportunity to learn from an Olympic artist and learn about the culture, the meaning. And then we had an Olympic subject artist who was like, yeah, I don't like what you're doing. So it's just, it's something I hadn't thought of with public programming.
But so I want to ask both of you, just casually, you're probably not collecting data, but maybe you are. Does it change your audience when you charge, or how does it change your audience? Do you get an older audience? Do you get a more urban audience? Do you have more children if you don't charge? I mean, part of it is who are you trying to reach with your programming, and who do you exclude when you add?
That's the question. Like, who's up? You got to figure out who you got to understand who your audience is and who you like. Sometimes you don't want to charge a fee. Sometimes, like, I try to do everything I can to encourage, if it's appropriate, to encourage like people to bring kids to the programming. So if the question ever is posed to me, like, can I bring my kid in? Do they have to pay that $25? I'm like, no, bring your kid. Like, make that space. It's not always appropriate, especially if we're using knives and cutting salmon up, but it's like, yeah, it's on your audience. Do you have an answer? Yeah. Go ahead.
Oh, no, I didn't have,
Oh,
I'm
okay.
sorry, I had it like that.
I thought I saw a hand
My
sneaking up.
body is more, yeah,
Oh,
not with your talk, but just sitting.
Yes.
You need another chair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We started, we started charging for workshops, not because of the artist issue, pay the artist, but because we were having a major problem with people signing up and then not showing up.
Yeah.
And we discovered that if you charge.
What was it this time?
I don't know, but I think it broke and it looks like it scattered manure all over the Sorry, continue. I'm really sorry.
Because so that if we ended up with the charge, we was charged upfront fee to confirm their space, a small fee, like $7. People were more likely to show up because there was nothing worse than having 20 people sign up for a workshop and then having one person actually show up. So, and it is a balance because we want to offer it for free or low cost because we don't want to shut anyone, price anyone out. But we had to make that balance of, we have to charge a little bit so people feel like, okay, I signed up for this and I paid, so I should come and just roll it off.
And where are you at?
The Museum of the North.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so.
I think that's
lots
one
of
thing
people
too.
try.
We're a pretty small community, so when people sign up, because we do pre-registration, we don't, for most of our stuff, we do pre-registration unless it's like a craft night and then it's drop-in. And so, if people don't show up, the next time they try to sign up, we tell them, well, you didn't show up, so we're gonna leave that space for someone else, So I think that is almost an advantage we have being a really small community. We usually have one or two people, I would say 25 who don't show up, but most people do show up. But again, small community, everybody knows each other, so you can easily shame each other. Waste your time and resources.
Museum. Shame is part of museum. Is that what you're doing?
It's a valuable tool.
It's also cultural.
It is. There is definitely
Many
a
cultures.
Many cultures.
We'll just call my name up.
But I think one of the things I like to think about when I do some programming, I'm more apt to want to charge for materials. I want to be able to. It's really important to have like quality materials for your programs. Good wood, good leather, good beads. There's nothing that can turn people off of doing art more than having crappy stuff.
Yeah.
So plastic or just things that might you want to get people to use good carving knives, sharp carving knives. I'm thinking about carving programs. That probably was a challenge I had with the fish flaying at some point. First time I did it, I used whatever I could find at the thrift store, which was weird. There might have been somebody using great harvest bread knives you could fillet. Didn't go well. So the second time I ran the program was with teens, so we had a much larger budget, so I went out and bought good fillet knives for them to use, and it was a much better class. Anyway, I'm jumping around. Go ahead.
Just getting you messed up, but thank you. That's important.
this is an exciting part. One of the best parts about this kind of talk is I have a path, and if you guys want to take it this somewhere else, I don't really have an expectation of you guys, so we can have some fun with this. So the less fun part of this I was talking about, I want to talk some of the nuts and bolts about that we consider when we do our programming. I'm a curator. I'm tasked with helping to research around exhibitions and occasionally come up with an exhibition. But as we're getting ahead of things, we start to think about like the time we try to, actually I should say we build programs around the exhibitions that we put together. Like a program called Exhibition Tricks About Humor in Alaska that I put together, or I helped to put together with my team of curators.
About what?
Humor in Alaska is like one of the things we did after we put together the list and built all the labels is we started to make plans around the programming that would tie into that program. So we're thinking about how we can keep people interested in our exhibitions as they go forward. And we think about like that timeline, like when are we going to have programs? When are we not going to have programs? Like we're not going to be like something like salmon exhibition like salmon cultures that we put together or we hosted. It was put together by the Pratt. It's about salmon, and guess what? Culture bearers around salmon aren't going to do anything in the museum in the summertime.
Right.
So,
Right.
so you have to think about the timeline. Sometimes you're not going to be able to get folks to come to the museum on moose hunting season, or might have more people around the kind of a weird dead zone for us is the holidays. Like people come to the museum, but they don't want to come to programs. I'm like, what is your budget? Who's paying? Do you have a budget? Do you not have a budget? Sometimes when you don't have a budget, it's easier for like it's when I know there's a low budget or a ambiguous budget, which can happen at my organization. It's easier just to jump in and do a program yourself. Like I have things I'm passionate about and things I want to help people learn about, and we can learn together. And figure out who your target audience is. You're bringing in who potential collaborators are and content. One of the things we do as a curatorial department is we try to tell stories not on the wall. So we're trying to bring in people that can talk about our exhibitions. Our bread and butter is artists in residence, artist talks, tours, and lectures. And it's really more fun to try and do other things. So, also, one of the things I've learned by doing public programs is as much as an expert as I think I am and think there are things I might actually be really competent about, maybe I think, there's always somebody in the room that knows more than you and they're in this space. And I try to welcome those. I do whatever I can to welcome those voices. But well, I swear we're going to start talking about salmon here pretty quick. But I mentioned tricksters and sourdoughs, and if this is intentionally really small, like this is a brainstorming session about me and some of the folks from the programming department and another curator got together just to throw out ideas that we can engage with. Some are accessible, some aren't. I'll read a handful of these guys. So, oh, wow. I didn't realize I was gonna with such a tiny screen. So, so tricksters and sourdoughs and the exhibition on humor in Alaska. Some of the things from our brainstorming list are shad carper demonstrations or something else, storytelling, Arctic entries, Pecha Kucha, question mark, that's a very structured storytelling, Moss style, Indigenous, question mark, Big Fish storytelling, written humor, stand-up comedy, Before You Die Comedy Festival, which is a festival in Anchorage, Mr. White Keys. So this is all just brainstorming and this is one of those ideas that gets fleshed out. Like sooner or later, a couple ideas work out well, and there's a couple more meetings that come in this. This is Mr. Wyke's. He wants to present the historical history of Alaska. I did this thing. He's still not been clear with me whether he's going to do a history of funny Alaska or a funny history of Alaska. So I see Alex over there. If you have any things you want to throw at me, just let me know. Okay.
That's coming up this November.
That's November
19th,
19th,
doing it.
yeah. A couple nuts and bolts around this too. It's gonna be a free program. It's gonna be in one of our large auditoriums. We're gonna ask for folks to register ahead of time if possible. Harvest information, not harvest information, that's so mean. It's good to get like a mailing list of people that are interested in your programming, and that's something you might be able to do. I also want to manage some space around it too. Like if only a dozen people sign up, I might make this room much smaller. But if the auditorium fills up ahead of time, like it might give me chances to find ways to engage with the people right away. Maybe Mr. Wyke's, or maybe there'll be a space in the next day to actually do a repeat, or I don't know. It gives us some information, but so I've said this before. Wow, why did I use pedagogical? That's not okay. It's not my way. I'm gonna see things. So when I think about building programs around an exhibition, I like to think about making a program that stands on its own, like something somebody can experience. They don't have to go through a whole series of programs, but it's exciting when people do, because I do try and build a series of programs or think about a series of programs that has a narrative, and I think about it more as a campaign. I don't think I'm doing things as well as I could be. I don't want to be doing the same program forever. Maybe there's some programs that's important to do, but it's not really something I want to do. And I want to be really intentional about that. As Lisa was talking yesterday about, I think it was Lisa, it's really easy for us to do things for the people in the community and not have it carry on, and just not have it's something that people want to see from our organization, and it's really important to be intentional about our programming. I do like to think about things with a transferable framework. Like I like to think about programs that something I'm my own guinea pig for programming. I like to do I don't want to ask an artist to do something that I'm not willing to do myself. So sometimes that might be flaying a fish. I'm probably never going to do another flaying a fish class, but I'm going to work with other people to do a flaying fish class. I think there's more people don't want to just hear me. And I like to make repeatable programs, or maybe think about things that I can have other people involved with. So I'm thinking about a series of programs I put together work well between 3 exhibitions, and actually a 4th one that's not here. Water Moves Life is a place-based art installation by Nicholas Galanin. So Salmon Culture is an art exhibition that explores Indigenous people's connection to the salmon throughout Alaska, which is pretty fun, and How to Survive, an art exhibition that considers the idea of survival through hope and care, and asks how gestures and practices of love and protection, love, protection, and nurturing and sharing can help us face climate change. A 4th one that's not here is we kind of have this simmering food sustainability program that's boiling in the background of the museum. not sure if it's going to be an exhibition, but it's through projects that we do, and like I put together a film on food reciprocity and urban harvest, which is our program for around getting people to think about food that is in and around Anchorage. That's a very crazy, a very urban area. This is a Water Moves Life. Feel free to get up and look at that picture if you like. There's a series of bronze milk jugs that were set around Anchorage, and also a second location in Juneau. I swear I thought those were going to be much bigger when they came out, but it wanted this exhibition wanted people to think about water around Alaska, and the way things were worded with it, there was a lot of room in the initiatives part of it that I could do. My title has initiatives in it, and that's the dangerous part of my title. Nobody knows what that is, and I can do whatever I want. Salmon culture is a much bigger exhibition than this. Yeah, it was a series of objects of around salmon. So, and I just grabbed a couple of pictures around of how to survive. The start of the How to Survive exhibition was actually throughout How to Survive, we wanted to get people to think about reusing materials and using sustainable materials. Sorry if I'm summing that up too much, Alex, but yeah, one of the things and this is kind of part of that. I'm going to talk about 3 programs I tied to this, but this is more of the programs that it includes a couple. There was other programs around. We're going to talk about catch a fish, everything but the salmon skin sewing, but around fishing and harvesting around Alaska, I did berry picking programs out in the woods. I talked about harvesting, an introduction to foraging in Alaska. Net mending was a pretty fun one. I used to be a commercial fisherman, and one of my superpowers was learning how to mend nets. And so it was really fun to bring that out to people. But also just talking about museum gallery tours. So trying to tie things into awareness around water around Alaska and water around Anchorage. I just really wanted to go fishing, and I love teaching people how to fish. I taught folks how to use attempt to catch fish with a line and pole. Most folks I talked to actually had never fished before, which is its own challenge. I didn't realize I actually had to teach people how to cast the line. And the funnest part about this too is like just tying oral history to things and telling people stories in a place where they were actually meaningful. Like, I don't know, it's one thing to tell you guys right now about the first time I tried fishing, but it actually matters. Actually lines up more so when we're out catching fish. I realized in the preview I could see what I was talking about, but you guys could. The saddest part about probably the biggest bummer is nobody actually caught a fish while we were out there. I think my colleague Aaron, one of my fellow curators, showed up, and he was the only person that caught a fish during this. So, but it was fun just trying to teach people about how to tie hooks and about the bait and where the fish might be. And I had a lesson that I was going to teach people to begin with, but you don't know what you don't know. I hate quoting Donald Rumsfeld, but it is, you don't know what you don't know until you get out there. And I guess I had assumed that most people would have some fishing knowledge out there. They don't, like not everybody does. So it was really important to have things set up ahead of time and have things quick and easy. And one of these days, if I ever do this, we'll be able to actually catch fish. There's also a fun part about this is I was able to put together a bunch of fishing kits for folks to check out. We have like a program that has like a tool library, and so folks can now check those fishing poles out if they need to, or would like to.
So how did you physically do this? Did you like have them show up at Ship Creek or something, or? Or did you bus them all together? They met at the museum, or?
I had them meet at the lake.
Mhm.
So at one of the lakes, I did a little bit of scouting out to find some places that would have some little extra room for a group of us to be.
Mhm.
And yeah, picked a lake, and that's where I had the program go to.
And you brought the poles and bait and all that stuff?
I brought the poles, I brought the bait, told people they needed to have a fishing license. That's,
Yeah, good.
and I think I also told them, like, if they needed help figuring out how to get a fishing license, I could help them do that too. But
Cool.
just, it's good having guinea pigs. My nephew who was visiting from the out of state, I had him show up to the program so I could test drive a bunch of this stuff too.
Uh-huh.
But so I tied this to, at this point I had tied this to Water Moves Life, as well as the Urban Harvest program as well. Everything about the slime was a fun way of thinking about things. The biggest thing I wanted to try and convey to people with this program was just the idea of going beyond just taking the best part of the fish, like take it. I've seen way too many poorly filleted salmon where people throw away more salmon than they keep. And I wanted to build up a little bit of awareness around that. I also noted one of the barriers for people like harvesting and doing subsistence activities or harvesting activities is just not knowing how to deal with things. Like, one thing that might keep somebody from buying a whole fish from a grocery store is just not knowing how to fillet it. In Anchorage, we have Noosa. They're happy to fillet the fish for you, but they also don't. They do a really quick job of it, and they don't utilize all that fish. So I want to build up some of that. So I want to do something hands-on. Also, it was really important for people to take the fish home when they're done. Speaking of costs earlier, we did charge people what the fish costs. Because I was going to be teaching it, I wasn't worried about paying another person, but we did. Folks, I think we had the fish for $35 a piece, so we're lucky to get red salmon. One of the big challenges at working at a place like a museum is pest management.
Yes.
You can't really do it's fortunately for us at the Anchorage Museum, we have an adjacent space called the Seed Lab, which is good for community building. I did have a conversation with Monica at collections beforehand, and I often have conversations with her before I do potentially not risky, but programming like this. Messy. And seeing what her concerns are. And a lot of times we could actually do these sorts of programs in the museum itself, but we have to make sure we clean everything up, don't leave the messes behind. And I did this in our Seed Lab space, which this makes it look like I set up a kill room.
How do you transport them? I mean, for the people to take home.
So I think I had a bunch of zip top bags. I had, but I also just kind of building sustainability into things. I encourage folks to bring. We encourage folks to bring bowls or snap top containers to take their projects home. Actually, it was kind of exciting. A lot of people brought their own fillet knives. So the fact that I wasn't bringing not everybody had to use a Great Harvest knife. So, but this is me in action. So you can kind of see I learned something from my aunt in filleting. Throughout the summer, she keeps a good cardboard for filleting fish in the kitchen. Makes cleaning up easier. Also, the fish sticks to the cardboard a little bit. So that's that's the bigger kicker. It doesn't work if you like process up 15 fish or so, but if you have 1 or 2 dinner fish, like it's really great for that. So
for things like this, it's important for people to just get their hands on the fish. They're afraid. They don't know what to do. So if they, with you, they get their hands on the fish, they're likely to do it again.
yeah, very much so. This is me breaking one of my rules I try to have at these programs, which is don't gesture with a knife. Do not gesture with a knife. It may look like a pointer, it is not a pointer. Yeah, it is important to like people should. The biggest thing is empowering people to make mistakes. Like the first thing I told everybody about this is it doesn't matter how good or bad the fish it looks, you can still cook it up. It's still totally edible. Like, actually, what I told people is I told them if you get like bits of salmon, like if it comes out really, really shredded, it is great for fish tacos. So,
yeah.
This was one of the challenges with this. Somebody had talked to me, somebody had mentioned bringing a salmon to demonstrate with you. And I realized one of the hardest parts about this was if you're talking, like you don't do a great job at this. Like I messed up this fish that's in front of me. It did not go well. And it's because I was talking my way through it. My colleague Nock was across the table from me, and her fish is beautiful. It's amazing. Oh my. So I ran this program twice. I was too tied up with exhibitions or putting together an exhibition to do it again this summer. But the first time around, I did it with community members, brought everybody who wanted to show up. The second time around, we worked with a group called the Teen Climate Communicators, and which is a group of teens. And this is part of a campaign around food sustainability, thinking about food and thinking about where food comes from. We talked a lot this time around. We talked a lot about like that the salmon actually came from across the river from Anchorage, or across Cook Inlet from Anchorage. And talk a little bit about this will segue into the next part. In addition to filleting fish, these kids actually wanted to take the skins and they tanned the salmon skins to make salmon leather on top of that. This is an extra level of food use. Kind of see this student has a knife and also a spoon in front of him. Like the one thing I was trying to get people to start doing was scrape the carcasses to get either salmon cake meat or fish taco fixings off the fish. I'm just trying to get down to the idea of like the only thing they were getting rid of was the bones and the slime. So I was trying to shoot for the truth in advertising of that. Which, as far as like a 3-part program, like the next part would be Salmon Skin Sewing, and I'm going to ask these guys around. This is factory made salmon skin. That,
Thank you for letting us.
Yeah.
touch this.
so the salmon skin sewing tied to both the urban harvest as well as salmon cultures. I wanted to do it with water moves like, but those are real salmon skins.
Those are incredible.
They're two different kind of. There are folks that tan them. There's videos on how to tan salmon hides on YouTube and a couple of different techniques for it. I definitely encourage you guys to try it once. Salmon leather is really cool because it doesn't have like a straight grain. It is like a kind of a random grain. So it makes it really tough. This came from a fish tannery in Iceland, I want to say. I bought it from an online leather place. And there's also a couple of creators that they'll sell the salmon leather at like places like AFN. I think June Pardue is doing that at some of them. But so for this particular class, because of the timing around the summer, like I said, a lot of folks are busy during the summer, so it didn't quite line up with when we had the time to run the class. So I chose to use the factory tan ones, and this is what folks are making. I think we only class of 20 folks might have used like 6 or 7, or maybe as many as 6 skins at that even. Folks made pendants and they made earrings. It's a 2-part class, and it's one of those things I couldn't teach this. So there's a couple of folks that work with salmon skin in Anchorage. These are immensely popular classes. They're well attended. I'm sure if every time we did a class, we could have filled it up. Unless we accidentally charge, not accidentally, unless we attempt to charge $100 a class, student, or $100 a student. That didn't seem to resonate.
We did try to charge 100
Yeah.
per person.
Yeah.
And that you still got a big participation at that price?
I got a passionate participation.
Okay.
I didn't get a large. I didn't
Yeah.
fill up the class.
Mhm.
So, I'm not sure I'm not sure. Like, I guess a question I have for you. I know what does make things break a little bit at the Anchorage Museum. Like, when folks don't show up to your guys' programs, what is happening, or what makes people not necessarily come to your programs? Yeah.
For us, a lot of times it's a really nice day out. In Alaska, nobody will show up. Nobody's coming. They're all out hiking or fishing or doing something else. So we'll just be like, all right, guess today's a bust.
From the flip side, a lot of things I don't attend, it's because I'm like a wage earner, so I'm busy during the day, and a lot of programming is midday. These times that doesn't work for somebody's work.
I think it's important too to understand if you're competing against other, you might not be aware of what's, you get your blinders on
Yeah.
your facility or your institution. Like, oh wow, there's the big festival or the fair or some other thing that you're competing against or a game. And that was just not on our radar. We weren't looking outside of our building or our institution.
One of the things, weather is huge. That's a sunny day will kill you. Though, like during the wintertime, the busiest days at our museum are snow days at the school. Because folks, we'll usually still be open, but yeah, it is important to think about what else is going on in the community. I attempted to do one of these berry picking class, which was really exciting and well attended because people want to know where to find berries and they want to know what to look for. I planned this activity off-site. It was tied to both Urban Harvest and Water Moves Life. but it was at a place called Arctic Valley, which is outside of Anchorage. It's a ski area during the winter time. This particular weekend, I didn't realize there was a music festival at Arctic Valley.
Oh, wow.
So fortunately, my program is tied to start about, like, people don't show up early for anything. That's kind of the other part, unless there's berries or food involved. So fortunately, all of my participants showed up early, but as we were getting ready to start, like, even though it was like a mile away in a valley, like, suddenly, like, music drowned out like everything I was trying to say, and like, oh man. And people were able to find parking, and that was also a time where I didn't have a captive audience. Like, my participants listened to me for like 2 seconds and they're running off in the hills. Man, my urge to chase somebody up like 500 yards up a hill is not high.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm trying to think of things that didn't go well with my programs in the past. But yeah, that was one I wanted to make sure I shared about. So I like to think about ways of, like, people love to show up to things with food. Food lures people in. Why do I use luring and baiting? So weird words to use. Fishing, yes, that's a.
Do you ever travel to other museums to do this, or just?
You want to pay me to? I'd love to. No, that's a good.
Oh, it's like a National Historical Park has, like, they paid to bring a poet, and she did a lot of public programming. I don't work in the interpret division there, and they're the ones that kind of set those things up.
Not yet. I'd like to. It's fun to work with the outside organizations. I was doing like a series of art classes, just because I'd like to do art with a group called RoCap, which is where the group that I was working with in particular were folks in one of their housing programs. Even though they might have been housed for 30 years, they still very much identify with the homeless population. And they're looking for ways with connecting with community. And I was attempting to use art to connect with the community. It was a free program, fun. I bring art stuff and come up with art lessons for folks. In the end, it had a handful of folks. This is the other side of the weather. Like, the bad weather turned into a problem. I had a lot of participation and like a lot of momentum to begin with, and then I had a series of, it was Fairbanks or Anchorage. I mean, gosh, I'm just mixing up Fairbanks and Anchorage. But Anchorage had a series of really bad snow, and at that point, Anchorage wasn't necessarily taking care of its snow as well as it could. So it made it really hard to access the space, and I lost all my participants. In the end, I think I had 2 folks that showed up, but kind of making lemonade out of lemons. I actually started working a lot with the staff. Like, I get like 1 or 2 participants, and then 4 staff members from that organization show up as a kind of unwind time. So yeah, I think you had a question.
What kind of art do you do?
What kind of art do I do?
Mhm.
I'm a photographer
Oh,
by trade.
okay.
Landscape photographer, a recovering newspaper journalist. But, oh, thank
And
you.
your art projects that you did at the museum? What
I
sort of things?
dipped into my art school background when just trying to pull basic drawing lessons. And it's a thing where you learn a little bit more about your audience. Sometimes it wasn't like, I start off really heady and like, we're gonna do some pretty amazing gesture drawings and still lifes. And then in the end, it turned into some, like, let's draw what you think a sunset looks like. That's a really dreary snowy day. So imagine let's pull out all of my art tools and imagine a sunset or sunny day or a field. And it's Valentine's Day, so let's make hearts and ornaments and things like that. So just having a lot of fun, actually. There was one, I did it on Thursdays. I think it's, and there was a few Wednesday nights where I was walking around the Michaels or Joanne Fabric trying to figure out what to do. And sometimes it was just grabbing a random kind of a different kind of markers that I hadn't used before. So,
Okay.
I'll go for. So the one thing I wanted to talk about, like really quick, I'll just blast through this real quick, and then we'll just talk about considerations. One of my challenges with doing things like berry picking was I really wanted to teach people how to responsibly use that resource, and I was realizing it in a place like Anchorage, it was very much overutilized. So I need to think about some different programs tied to that. But I don't like seeing people pick every berry in an area. It scares me to think there are people that probably have a freezer full of unripe blueberries just to blueberry madness. And I also want to think about safety. Safety is a pretty huge thing for me. Making sure I don't want. One of the reasons I stopped doing my forging classes is I realized that I needed to actually start working with a forging expert. Because as folks were asking things to me, I was realizing that wasn't necessarily, I didn't want to encourage people to pick the wrong thing or utilize things in the wrong way. So we're litigious. We do have to think about what's safe for our organizations. I want to, and the last part about that is also, I just want to make sure I'm not introducing bugs or anything else bad in a building. So this is one of the reasons I do this. I love seeing families engage with my museum. Sometimes I have to go out into the community or go out on the hillside to do that. And this is one of the reasons I do that. And I don't know, I'm gonna just kind of end with some questions, but I'm gonna think you guys, if you wanna chat, like we can. The last bit of like motivation for this is we can bring our museums to our communities if we need to, but I don't know. Do you guys have questions or anything like that, or direct thoughts, concerns, ideas you want to bounce around? Ideas are the magic, and they're the treasure of our organization. So when you can steal those from other people, that's the best thing.
How do you communicate your programming? Website,
For a lot of programs, we don't necessarily advertise. It's where we have the value of having we do a lot of social media advertising. We do outreach to our organizational mailing lists and a website. Most of what we do is organic that way. Larger programs and bigger things like the galas and really huge things we do advertise outside, or we'll work with I've heard our advertisements on our radio stations. And, yeah.
Timing the whole place, or is it
like
okay.
timings for programs? Is it?
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, it comes down to who you want to engage with. If you want to, like you said, like if you have things in the middle of the day, like you're not going to get many folks they have to be pretty passionate about what you're doing to take time off work to come to a program at noon, unless it's specifically lined around lunch. But even that you have to have that. But things during the daytime, you might get more seniors or more family members. Evening programs, you can get everybody. Yeah, have to figure out who you're trying to connect with.
Particularly if you've already said this, but do you do a lot of programs that like have a multi-day component, or are they usually just like a one incident sort of coming together?
Mostly a one day thing. We can do a multi-day program, but kind of gotta, yeah, those have to be, like, I think the Salmon Skin Sewing one was a
Yeah.
multi-day, it was a 2-day program.
Right. We do multi-day stuff pretty periodically, but like, again, like the headdress is like, no one's gonna learn how to make a headdress even in one 8-hour day.
Yeah.
But the first time we did headdress workshops, we did 3 days in a row. And we got feedback that like that was a little overwhelming. And so the next time we did it, we spaced it out, and it was a Saturday and a Sunday the first weekend. And then the third day was the following Saturday, so that they could have time, you know, if they wanted to work on it in between and kind of think of their questions. Because what we found the first time was that people had so many questions that they didn't think of until after it was over, you know?
Yeah.
But it is tricky with multi-day stuff, getting people to come every time.
I'm thinking about classes I've taken, the workshops I've taken that have been like, I've taken 2 Bentwood box carving classes in Southeast from 2 different instructors. One person did it like one night a week for 6 weeks, and one did a weekend intensive, like Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I learned a lot more from the weekend intensive. So I think there's something to be said for like staggering through. It was something they might not necessarily be able to do in a day.
Yeah.
But the weekend one, it was, yeah. I think I learned how to make if I wanted to, I could make a Northwest Coast style Bentwood box from the
So
first
cool.
one. The second one, the 6-week one was too
Too
spread out.
And with the 6-week one, was it like just like an hour or 2 each time?
I want to see, I think it was like, it might have been 2 hours each time. Yeah. Just, there's something you said for that repeatability,
Mhm.
So the museum has some sort of a tool room or
the tool library or the,
yeah, and then I don't know, some of these classes that you guys are doing, I mean, they're pretty amazing. Is
some
that
of,
in a special space set up for that, or?
we have a couple of different teaching spaces, one or 2 normal classrooms, and then, or how I would call normal, like chairs and a video screen.
Mhm.
And then like something more set up like a traditional, like a school art room. It's called the art lab, actually.
Okay,
so-
you're an art lab.
So, but it's also set up as I think when they put it together, they especially want to make sure they could do screen printing in it. So it has some pretty aggressive sinks in it.
Mhm.
And then the seed lab is the external building. And that's the one that we can do some pretty crazy stuff in.
Oh,
We have woodworking equipment in there, stuff that can be checked out as well. But
yeah. Could you explain more about the seed lab?
oh
I mean,
man,
is it SEED?
yeah,
Seed, like seeds?
yeah. I
Just
forget
a little bit.
It's a building that's adjacent to the Anchorage Museum that we first started engaging. We went through a grant through the Bloomberg Philanthropies. The whole idea of letting us lease this space was to be able to build community in unique ways, in ways that we couldn't necessarily do in the museum space. So fortunately, the grant ran out, but they wanted to let the owner of the building wanted to work with us and keep that relationship going. So it's an interesting building. Has 2 traditional classroom-ish space with a second I think it was an old garage at one point, but there's a lot of I think we have it partially set up as a theater. And there's a organization that put together a 10 city press. They set up a printmaking stuff. Forgetting the type of press they have set up there, but yeah, it's there's also places for artists in residence upstairs as well. So it's a pretty unique multi-purpose space.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Do you have like a education staff that works there that handles maybe school groups or outreach to schools?
I hopefully, yeah, we have, that's one of the exciting parts about our museum. We have like we have an education department that works with the schools and works with developing education curriculum, as well as a programming staff, which does a lot of programming work. The curatorial department does a lot of programming tied to exhibitions, and the development department does programs tied to building membership and bringing more support to the museum. I know a lot of folks have much smaller museums, so it's programming can be a little bit different for them. So, but we have a little bit more freedom being a bigger box.